We just got off of three cruises. We sailed Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian Cruise Line, and it is time to talk about cutbacks. Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Jordan.
And I'm
And
Jared.
this is
JJ
JJ Cruise.
Cruise.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's no secret that the major cruise lines have made some huge changes within the cruise industry. We wanted to experience these cutbacks and changes for ourselves, so we took three cruises side to side to figure out what was going on within each of these cruise lines.
Now, of course, cutbacks are never easy. They're something that we don't want to see in any type of industry, but we know that they are going to happen, especially after the pandemic that we just went through. The cruise restart is strong. However, they might have to do some things to make sure that they can stay alive.
We know that there's a lot of things that can impact your cruise vacation. So today we're going to talk about the changes that were very noticeable on each cruise line and some of the things that we expected would be different, but really surprised us. At the end of this video, we are going to share the one thing that we think could ruin the cruise line industry forever if they don't figure out quickly.
Some of these really hurt. But before we get into them, we do have to ask, please subscribe to the channel. We know that only about 25% of you subscribe to the channel. It's free to you, means the world to us. And while you're at it, hit that thumbs up.
We started these three cruises by cruising Norwegian Cruise Line. We were on a 7 night Caribbean cruise on the Norwegian Breakaway. There was one thing in particular that really stuck out in terms of changes, and that was staff cuts.
When there are cuts in crew, it is noticeable ship wide, and that was no different on a Norwegian Breakaway. The most noticeable it was, though, was on the bar service and the food service. When you went to a bar, there'd be one bartender, and the bar was full of 20 people waiting for a drink. Obviously, that is not going to be something that bartender can handle within 5 minutes of time. So people would wait 20, 30 minutes for a drink. The same can be said at some of those eating venues as well. And it just was not the service that any crew member wants to provide.
This was noticeable because you might go to the bar and order a drink and suddenly find yourself with a different drink from what you ordered. Similarly, at dinner, if you order a soup and a salad, your soup maybe just will never make it to your table. The crew was extremely apologetic when these mistakes were made, and you could tell that they felt really bad because they weren't providing that A+ level of service, but it was noticeable and consistent all week long. In contrast, we know that Norwegian has made some major changes to entertainment, and we actually didn't notice a large impact on our cruise.
Yeah, we were really surprised by this because we had heard so much about entertainment being cut. And honestly, we were well entertained the entire voyage. In fact, that would be the one savior of that voyage for us was the fact that the entertainment was strong, alive, and well.
Once we were done on the Norwegian Breakaway, we made our way to the Carnival Valor. We were on a 5 night cruise to Mexico out of New Orleans. And for this cruise, we knew that Carnival had a number of different cutbacks already in motion. There was one thing in particular that really stuck out to us.
Right when we boarded the ship, we went into our stateroom and was very unpleasantly surprised that it was dirty. And this was after it had been cleaned. And what I mean by this is that there was gum left in a drawer, there is hair left in the bathroom, just things that are not going to be left unnoticed if a stateroom attendant has limited amount of rooms to make sure that they're all clean. It was very noticeable stateroom attendants had more rooms than ever to clean, and that was going to be something that was an issue for turnover day when they had to do all the rooms all at once.
Unfortunately, the uncleanliness in the cabin led outside the cabin as well. We noticed in the hallways and the rest of the public areas in the ship, it just wasn't as clean as we are used to on a cruise ship. We noticed some food in the hallway often. There was a lot of dust and dirt and grime on different statues and different areas of the ship. It just was not as clean as we know Carnival ships to be in the past.
On the flip side, we were actually surprised because we expected some other parts of Carnival to go down with the overall cutbacks, one of which being the food quality. We actually expected the food quality to actually lower than what we expect on Carnival, and we were pleasantly surprised. It may have been the best food we've had on a Carnival cruise ship in a long time. So the food quality was still great. The other thing that we were surprised about is the once a day room service. The fact that our room was serviced once a day instead of twice a day, I think was the right choice for the limited staff they had for the staterooms. It did not affect us at all. And in fact, we actually think this is more in normal industry standards. You go to an all inclusive, they're probably not going to make your bed 3 times a day or twice a day, even, but they will come in once a day, sometimes not even that. So even the once a day wasn't a big factor for us.
Now, we want to clarify we think that turnover day, there's a major issue in terms of the stewards and stews getting to all of the rooms and making sure that they're in check versus the rest of the crews. We never had any issue with the cleanliness in our cabin after day one, but coming in at 2 p.m. in the afternoon when the room was supposed to be ready, it clearly was not. So it's something that Carnival maybe is still in the process of getting figured out when they are coming to the room only once a day.
Once we got off Carnival Valor, we headed over to Royal Caribbean's Brilliance of the Seas out of Tampa. And we went to some great destinations. Grand Cayman, first time for us, which is a surprise, I know. And it was a wonderful cruise, but there were some cutbacks that really were, well, noticeable.
The big changes for Royal Caribbean come in play in the dining room. We know that there's been a huge change to their menu, as well as some very strange and new rules within the dining room service. One that particularly sticks out to us is that they will only bring you one dish at a time. So, for example, if you sit down and you want two entrees at dinner, they will only bring you your second entree once you have finished your first one.
We're not kids. And this is a very big difference from cruising in the past, where you could order two, three entrees if you wanted, and it would all come at one time. Or if you didn't like some of it, you didn't have to eat it and you get a second one. Now, I will say this was also not very well maintained as an actual policy change, because when they told us this, sometimes they would still bring two at once. So even though it was threatened almost every time that we ordered that, remember, the second one won't come out until you're done eating the first one, sometimes they just went by the policy and bypass it completely and just gave us both dishes. Overall, this just made us feel bad. Like we didn't want to feel like we had to finish all of our food before mommy or daddy would give us the next course. It just did not feel good, did not sit well for us, and honestly did not make us feel great while ordering our meals.
One area that this really impacts is sharing. There are often times where Jared and I will each get an entree and we want to try something else, so we will grab a dish to share. That really is complicated with this new rule because, again, that means we have to each finish our own entrees, then they'll bring us one and we can share off of that one plate. Just very bizarre. And for us, we were not big fans of this rule.
Now, surprisingly, on the flip side, the actual menu changes weren't bad. We really felt, with all the chatter online with people freaking out about the menu changes, that it was going to really be a bad menu change. We had heard it all, that it was so limited that you can't find a single thing on the menu, that there aren't any kind of classic dishes from the previous menu on the new menus, just everything bad possible and nothing good. So when we got there, we were pleasantly surprised. We found great entree choices, great appetizer choices, and a lot of options every single night that we went to dinner. Of course, where this comes into play is dietary restrictions. We don't have as many as others do. So, of course, that could be something that is of issue for some and not for us.
Now, out of all of three ships, in terms of the cutbacks, the least noticeable was the Carnival Valor. We really sailed that cruise as normal, and the cutbacks did not seem to impact or change many things that we're used to on Carnival, really in any way. So, Carnival has done a good job in keeping up in standards of service and food and dining, and we really did enjoy our time on the Carnival Valor.
And even in the cleanliness part, it wasn't like our tables weren't clean, the things that we eat off of. It was just more of the grime in the corners, the statues being dusty. Those things just didn't affect us that much, even though they weren't to the standards that we knew in the past.
Let's talk about the one thing that really doesn't sit right with us and the thing that we think could be highly detrimental to the cruise line industry. We know that a lot of you sitting at home and Jared and I love the crew. I want to go back to the service issue on Norwegian Cruise Line because this was actually pretty severe. And it was severe because the crew, you could tell, were impacted in a way that was really serious.
The crew morale was at the lowest we've ever seen, maybe minus the very last cruise when we got stuck out at sea when the pandemic ever began. Besides that, the crew morale was the lowest we've ever seen. And the reason is because of the shortage, and cuts and crew went way too far on the Norwegian breakaway. They had so much more to do and way more people to serve, and they couldn't do it the way they love to do it, which is personally. They love to be able to give the best service possible personally and be able to get to know their guests, and they couldn't do it. They had to always let people down with poor service because they didn't have enough people to do it. And the crew morale being at that low is the worst thing we can possibly see, with cutbacks happening across the cruise line.
Now, the crew are scored on those post cruise surveys that you get once you're at home. And many people would be surprised that if they get like a 7 or an 8, that is considered failure. So they are out there aiming to get 9s and 10s or near perfect scores from you at home so that they can continue doing a good job. We just don't see this ending well for a lot of crew or for the cruise line in general, because when the crew morale is low and you can see that they are struggling, that is something that really does impact the morale of the passengers on board.
Those were the cutbacks that we noticed what hurt the most, and those that we were surprised about. Overall, we have to say all the cruises were still wonderful times. And I have to bring it to the point of, you're still gonna have a great cruise vacation, even with some of these cutbacks. Most of them weren't that noticeable and something that did not affect us at all. But we wanted to make sure that we we're completely honest with you on what did affect our cruise. And so you can prepare for your upcoming cruise vacation.
Thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Have you sailed any of these cruise lines in 2023? What cutbacks have been most noticeable to you? We want to hear from you and get a healthy discussion going in the comments. But until next time, see ya.